Well, I got a question for you, or a couple questions for everybody, and pertaining to Ngondro. And why do we do Ngondro? Why do you think we do Ngondro?
Why do we do it in general, or why do we do it every Friday?
At 7 o'clock? No, in general. What is why? What is Ngondro for? Why do we do it?
It's a it's for regular dust and clean. It's a purification to get ready to do advanced practices. To right? I mean, it's
Well, yeah, that's a good answer. Yeah, I mean, there's many answers to this, I think.
oh, okay.
Yeah. So, does somebody else have something to add to that?
To cultivate
To
our
cultivate?
yeah, cultivate our faith, our commitment, our level of devotion, to
Well,
and like
Lance, is,
Michael said. Oh, go ahead.
isn't it the case that if you don't do anything, Ngondro is the best package of practice to do
You mean
because
if
it's
you
got
only do one thing?
yeah, because it's got a little bit of a lot, right?
Correct. And that's
Yeah.
what Jigden Sumgun would say, something to the effect of this is the most important practice because it's the foundation of all the other practices.
So it's expedient means.
Tom, did you have something else to add to that?
I was going to say something similar to that, because in the very, very, very first paragraph that you read is considered the most, or not the most, but is considered a very important part of your practice, and that you should that this shouldn't be looked upon as something that just should be breezed over or looked over, because even the four ordinary foundations, that's the very basis of all the practices, and Jigten Sumgun said that, if you don't have the basis covered, it's like, it's a foundation. If you have a weak foundation, the building or the structure is going to fall. So this is building a very strong, solid foundation.
Okay. Amanda, did you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I agree with Michael and Thomas. I was thinking too, like in addition to the purification practice and kind of building and increasing our devotion, it also really reinforces refuge, I think. At least I'm thinking about that as we're doing these practices. And the four thoughts that turn the mind to Dharma, that practice is really so beneficial for me, and it's included in this. And then, like Thomas said, building that foundation, and it is the preliminary practice, and at the same time, I've heard Kimpo, and I'm sure you've said it too, Lance, that it's also like the essence is Mahamudra as well. So it's, I think it's everything. I think it's really, really amazing.
Yeah. Curtis, you have anything that you want to add?
I think it's a good question. The fact that we're kind of scratching our heads a little bit, at least I am, means it's a good question. I like what Amanda just said. We hear these different ideas like the four thoughts to turn the mind, but the Ngondro says, there's your foundation. And so it kind of points to it as for how important it is, not just an idea that you like or you think about, but something you really try to get your mind grasping. And then refuge and purification, elementary things. I don't know. What's your answer, Lance?
Well, I had a little bit more time to think about it, but I wrote down a few things that I thought, and so I said to establish a firm foundation for the practices of liberation, enlightenment, and Buddhahood, which are liberation, enlightenment, and Buddhahood are really synonyms for Mahamudra, for that same thing. So, I'm just saying the same thing that, you all said, to establish a firm foundation in these practices, why we do them, and it's explained in the mantras that we recite, the increasing mantras and so on, says why we're doing this, so it's really important, and I think that's great. And also to establish stability and confidence in the meaning of the practices. So that's saying it yet another way, the confidence and the stability and the meaning of the practices, to understand that too. And then to enjoy the ground, the path, and the fruition. In our tradition, we talk about it, many different ways. In the Nyingma, they talk about the ground, the path, and the fruition all the time. That's the basis of the Dzogchen practice and so on. So here, to enjoy the ground, what we start out as, this is our ground, then we want to get to enlightenment. So we have to traverse from where we are, from this ground, on the path to be able to get to enlightenment. And then when we get to enlightenment, we find out that it was right there in the ground. We just didn't recognize it. So we say many times that the perfection is actually being on the path. That's where the perfection is, so that's an interesting idea. That's something to contemplate, what that means. So what we're enjoying the ground, the path, and the fruition of virtue, to really call it out. Now, what we're really trying to do is to learn and understand, comprehend, and stabilize our virtue in realizing the embodiment of the holy enlightened mind, that we become the embodiment of we become the ground, the path, and the fruition, all within ourselves. And we do this glimpse by glimpse, vision by vision, and life by life. And a lot of people, are always apprehensive about, oh, I got to do this now. I got to do this now. And what's my next life, and so on. And the point is to be able to look at it in a much broader sense, in terms of the tantra, the continuum, and that it's a progression, it's a progress. So we do it glimpse by glimpse. The glimpses become visions, and then it's life by life. And in this life, maybe we've come to a point in this life that is the fruition of many lives to get to this point, because we're really on this threshold of really making substantive changes in the zeitgeist of many people, of our civilization as we know it, and so on. And I think that's really important, and shouldn't be, to me, it's something that shouldn't be missed. It shouldn't be taken for granted. It's very important, so glimpse by glimpse, vision by vision, life by life. So that's what I thought about it. Firm foundation, stability and confidence, and and virtue.
So I think also, and probably one of the reasons that we have to do it every Friday, if not every morning, is that we undergo lots of rebirths during our week. So we have lots of opportunity to forget the whole kit and caboodle. And so we humans, we have to be reminded all the time about what's important, and the details of our situation in this life, because we forget so quickly, especially since every morning we wake up and we reassemble our whole selves. Some of what we knew the day before, we're going to leave it in dreamland, or we're going to shower it off in the shower. So there's certain of these absolute basic tenets we have to keep pounding into our head until we're pickled in it.
Sure. The stabilization. Yep. Absolutely.
And it's been about a year and a half now since I started this. And that's it's basically what you and I talked about initially when I started this, and I made this my only practice. So when we're doing other practices, sometimes I tend to lag behind a little bit because, what's that old saying? Jack of all trades and a master of none. I just wanted to focus on one thing, and at least hopefully just focusing on that one thing, that it'll help me, and it has, incredibly. Every morning when I wake up and do this, and I start doing my prostrations, then I realize why I'm doing this.
What's the most meaningful thing? What's the most powerful thing to you as you are doing the practice? If there's one element in, the hour, 2 hours, whatever you spend doing this, what's the most powerful remembrance that is triggered by doing this practice?
The 4 ways of turning the mind. Every morning when I read that, it brings focus back into why I'm doing this. As simple as that may be, that's the very that's the ordinary foundation, but that's, every morning when I read that and I contemplate on that, like I said, I spend a lot of time just contemplating on that. That really brings everything in focus, why I'm doing this exactly. So it's a tremendous practice, it's very, very, very deep, meaningful, and I'm so thankful that you convinced me or talked me, into, try it, just try it. And like I said, it's been a year and a half. So, and every morning I still look forward to it.
Very good.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else have any comments about it?
I just have a really practical question for Thomas, if that's okay, because I really appreciate your discipline, and you've been doing this for such a long time now. What is if you don't mind me asking, what is your schedule in the morning? Like, do you get up at 4 a.m.? Like what, and I know what works for you might not work for me, but it's good to hear other practitioners kind of make things work in our life, if that makes sense.
Sure. I get up around 4:30. And I start my practice, and it usually takes me 3.5 to 4 hours to complete the whole practice. And that usually involves just the reading portion is about an hour and a half, about close to 2 hours, and the prostration is about 45 minutes, and then meditation's another 30 minutes to 40 minutes. So, and then in between, I'll try to take a quick shower as well, but yeah, usually about 4 hours. And and sometimes I'll go into this practice and then a lot of times when I join you guys, like on a Saturday morning for Campo's meditation stuff, I've already done 4 hours of practice, and I finished right at about 5. I give myself about 10 minutes jumping into that practice, So a lot of times, yeah, I'll try to time it, but sometimes it's kind of hard. But yeah, I mean, like what's it, my wife used to say, I'm so regimented, just focus it. Well, but watching that video that we watched a couple of weeks ago with the Kumbh Mela, and the lady was saying there's got to be sacrifices. You can't just do what you want, when you want, how you want, whenever you want, and expect something. There's got to be some kind of focus there that you're willing to sacrifice, and you're willing to do every day. And some days I get lazy. I don't want to get out of bed, but then certain mornings I'm like, I'm ready to go, and it's just, you just have to push yourself. You really do, every day.
How's it go for you, Amanda? I know, you've got, a young child and everything.
Yeah.
How's it work out with you?
Oh, I wish I could say that I get up at a certain time every morning, but I don't, because if my son keeps me up at night, then I just, I'm not 20 anymore. I can't just power through on 3 or 4 hours of sleep like maybe I used to could. And then be able to take care of, since I have these other people I'm taking care of, to actually be able to do that efficiently. I can't do that anymore on really little sleep. So I don't know. I definitely, make it every morning for Kempo's classes and meditate then. And then usually before when I open my eyes, I try to remember to do the 4 thoughts meditation. So I have these practices that I do even if I'm still in bed, like before I even get out, just to kind of set my intention for the day. I have prayers that I read at night. I've been trying to recite the Bodhisattva's Confession of Downfalls. I don't do it during the 3 times of the day and the 3 times of the night, but I'll make sure that most days, not every day, but at least I do it once, but I try to do it 6 times through the day at some point. So yeah, I probably have more details, but if I can make it to practices and make it to classes and then do things in between family life, then I feel like that's as good as I can do for now. And then my son will be in school before too long and for more hours of the day, and I'll have a little bit more time, I think. But yeah, I think also for me, having a family with a little one is just trying to remember to be mindful through the day is a big part of the practice, because if I can be mindful of kind of what we learned in the Way of a Bodhisattva, with just thinking about emptiness and thinking about bodhicitta, even though I don't really have experiences of emptiness, but if I can be mindful of that when I'm taking care of my son or my family and just doing these things, if I can chant like the Tara mantra in my mind throughout the day, then it's really wonderful. That really helps me a lot. Like if I'm driving him to school, even when I'm talking to my son, if I'm still, sometimes I'll just sing the mantra to him. So all those little things help me throughout the day if I don't have time to just sit down and do a long meditation. If any of that makes sense.
No, that's great. Do any of you, have, what's your aspiration, for next year, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, a next life? What's your aspiration? What would you, if you could start this life over, how, what would you have changed in this life? But I think it's better to think about, in the future rather than going back in the past. What would you think about that, Amanda?
Well, I think I would have, if I would have found Dharma, I would have definitely been on a spiritual path, I think immediately. I think there's no doubt about it. I don't know exactly what that would have looked like, but yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have gotten my college degrees that I would have gone into. I would have gone into maybe Tibetan studies or something else. I'm not sure, but yeah, I'm just grateful to be here at the moment. So
Would you have been interested in a monastic lifestyle?
possibly, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Definitely that would have definitely been a possibility. Yeah.
Curtis, how about you? How would you answer that question?
How would I have done things differently if I'd
Oh,
encountered Dharma?
better. What's your aspiration for
Okay.
tomorrow and next year, 5 years, and next life?
Next life. Okay, let's jump to next life. Uh, you know, it's very interesting. I'm very much in the now these days. And the now today was the project. The now yesterday was Kempo's gone, and I'm going to be here for 5 weeks, maybe, without anything going on. And I'm back to doing that, which means I'm going to have more time for practice and, more time alone. And that's going to be rich too. And, I don't know where I'm going to be on the other side of that. It really just feels very open-ended. I haven't got a whole lot of commitments except my junk back in North.
Are you enjoying this lifestyle now?
Oh, I'm completely content. I feel just absolutely wonderful. I need to make more time for meditation. For example, today I was working while we were doing the morning prayers because I was so interested in the project. I like to make more time for meditation. I mean, that's what I should be doing here, but I can get active and not take the time I like for meditation.
Do you like doing
yoga.
practice in the morning or in the middle of the day or in the evening time?
It's all really organized, like Amanda said, over Kempo Sanda meditation and morning prayers. That goes for about an hour and 15 minutes. And, there's some Sangha before that I enjoy. So it really turns into about an hour and a half minimum, I'd say. And things were revolving around that. And of course, when Kempo Sanda was here, it was, taking walks with him and, hanging out with him and helping him. That was practice. It was just, all that was just wonderful. It's wonderful just being here. Just being at the temple is being immersed in practice.
Okay. Michael, how would you answer the question?
Can you say the question again?
What's your
what would I do
aspiration? What your aspiration for, tomorrow, 5 years from now, next life?
I think for the next life, I'd like the luxury of being a student. I tried to do that with this lifetime. I managed to be a professional university student until it almost killed me. And I was surrounded by priests growing up. So there's this streak, this sort of Irish streak in me that is always drives, sort of in the back of my head, drives me towards ministry and Dharma teaching. I mean, I was pretty heavily on the path towards becoming a minister when I was with Jodo Shinshu. I was probably a year away from that, and that was a long path. Right now I'm just lucky to be able to surf the waves. I couldn't survive getting up in the morning and doing 3 hours of anything besides work.
You mean from a practical point of view?
Yes. Yeah.
Financial.
Well, yeah, financial.
I mean, but say money wasn't an issue, what would, and you didn't, you didn't have to work, then what would your day be like? What would you aspire your day to be like?
I'd be at a monastery.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, what about your relationship, in your marriage now? And I hope Meta's not around the corner there listening.
No, she's not, but she grew up around monasteries in Chiang Mai. And the women in her family, they spent a lot of time in the monasteries. She has good friends that have gone in and out of nunhood. Both of her sons have been monks several times, and they're in their mid-20s. But in religious families, you just sort of check into a monastery for 6 months every couple of years. Instead of military service, they consider it's healthy. It's getting back in touch with the Buddha.
Oh, that's good. I haven't heard that from other cultures that they do that. Either you come in, you stay, and if you leave, You're not coming back.
No, they've had their heads shaved, and they get into the, you know, into the uniform, and they hang out and practice, sometimes for a month, sometimes for 3 months, sometimes more.
That's really good. I think
And then
that's
it's time to
good.
rejoin the society, and you bring your experience back with you. And I think that's part of the practice in a developing country. That's
Is
very,
that Theravadan? Is that Theravadan in Thailand there?
it's Theravadan, yeah. It's Thai forest, yeah. I mean, but it's very Mahayana influenced.
Is that right?
Yeah, their liturgy, their books are, I mean, they're very hardcore Theravadan when it comes to the sutras that they're reading and interpreting. But their lifestyles are definitely influenced by ideas around middle path and patience and growth.
Do they talk
And
about emptiness and the two truths and the Bodhisattva ideal?
Bodhisattva ideal, I think, is, you know, I think most people would say the Bodhisattva ideal was born in Mahayana. And so yeah, that yes, emptiness. Meadow and I have talked about emptiness, but we don't have the vocabulary for it. You know, I try to describe the things primordial and things before humans, you know, before beings like us decided to build a phenomenal world. And she understands where I'm going with it, but that's never been her purview to be in that, to be thinking about those things. Those are really the things that the monks are allowed to sort of swim in. And I think that's why Vajrayana has been, in the past, it's been considered pretty esoteric, and, you know, leaning towards the mystic end for those that are on the outside, and secretive, you know, like our practices. I guess 50 years ago, somebody like me would not be doing any practices beyond the preliminaries. I wouldn't have the authorization. If I were to become a monk, Meta would just want to live nearby and bring food. Yeah.
Tom, how would you answer the question?
Oh, in the for tomorrow and from 5 years from now, just be a decent human being, you know, be a decent person, you know. And in my next life, I would definitely be a monk. And even in this life, I've been trying to be convinced into going into becoming a monk, you know, because I have several monks in my family, and they've that's a funny thing. My mother, you know, Asians practice a lot of Buddhism, but when their sons or daughters decide to go into the monastery to become a nun or a monk, they really discourage it because they realize the hardships of becoming a monk or a nun, you know, the sacrifices that they will have to make. They're like, you know, that's a hard, grueling road to take, you know. But and the only reason I don't, I guess, take that route right now is because it wouldn't really be fair to my family, because that's not what they signed up for. I mean, for me to just completely isolate them and to become a monk, you know, that's just, I mean, for myself, being selfish, yeah, that'd be wonderful, that'd be great, but you know, it just, I mean, like I said, it wouldn't be fair to them. It just really wouldn't be, you know. And like what you do, I admire immensely, because you know, you raised your family, and but in your later life, you're really dedicating yourself to teaching others, and to really broaden others' views and perspective of Buddhism, and to put them on the path, you know. And really, I mean, my aunt, the one that because both my parents are passed, but the aunt, my younger aunt, when we talk about dakinis and such, my aunt comes to mind. She turned my uncle into a monk. This is her first marriage. And even 20-25 years ago, she asked me, do you have any ideas or aspirations of becoming a monk? And at that time I was like, no, I mean, not, you know, I thought about it, but no. But she's, you know, super supportive, you know, anything, whatever it takes. I mean, you know, but she's always shared one thing. She's like, you know, monk or not, you know, just have a really big, deep heart. And if you can accept and tolerate, or be accepting of others and willing to help them, you don't have to have a label as a monk. You know, just because you have the label as a monk doesn't mean you're an accepting, big-hearted person. So yeah, that's what Buddha wants you to be. Is to help others, you know. And when I look at you, Lance, you're always trying to go the next step to help others, you know. And that's very inspirational to me when I look at you, you know, because you give up your time, your energy, you know, and that's it's very encouraging to me, you know, when I see that, you know. And like I said, if my next lifetime, even if I wasn't a monk, you know, I would want to be a lay person like yourself to help others as much as possible, you know.
Well, it's good. You know, I think, you know, for ourselves to hear ourselves speak and say things is really good. You know, for myself, you know, it's something I think about. I don't have a really good answer, you know, but because our mind is conditioned, you know, that, you know, it's hard to imagine, you know, what it would be to say grow up in India or Tibet or something like that, um, with the mentality that I've had in my life now. You know, what would I be like a teenager and so on, and when hormones start raging and all that kind of stuff. You know, I look at it very practically like that. You know, and when you're in your 20s and you know how things are happen to us at that time in our lives, you know, here in the West and so on, and the possibility, we had so many possibilities, you know, to be born in the old world, so to speak, in the old country. Your possibilities are much more limited, I think, you know, and that conditions you too. But I've been impressed by the life of Drupal, Tenli Ningpo. You know, he was, you know, respected in his family. They were nomads. He had brothers and sisters. He was the oldest, and he was given the responsibility of making sure that the animals are taken care of and stuff like that as they moved around. And but he was very smart, and he started teaching the younger kids when he was in his teenage years. You know, teaching them how to read and write and so on like that. He didn't go in to become a monk until he was 19 years old. And I don't think that was unusual for the time. You know, the ones who lost their mothers and fathers, lost their parents, would go into the monasteries at a very young age. Or if their parents were poor and couldn't support the kids, they might go into the monastery, or maybe they weren't the firstborn. The firstborn would go into the family business, so to speak, you know, but the second, third born would then be expendable. You know, they could go into the monastery, represent the family. It was a noble thing to represent the family. So I think about that, you know, well, maybe that would be a good lifestyle. and then, you know, to learn about the practices, learn about the doctrine and so on. And in my life, I need structure, you know, so I looked for structure, and even now, you know, I look for structure. Um, you know, but then to get to a point, you know, like we say, you know, in many of the teachings that, you know, we do, that to not be to not be the meditator or the meditation, you know, and to have that separate, that there's no distinction between the meditator and the meditation, and so on. And I think that you know, to some degree, that's what I'm really trying to cultivate. And now, you know, I'm becoming more and more aware of that. And again, looking at Drupal as an example, he's a man who gave up his robes, and he, you know, lives in a loving relationship. And he's told me, you know, he says, there's love there that as a monastic, I just didn't know was there. And it's different, and it's beautiful, and it's great. And it makes so many other things make sense to me that didn't make sense to me as a monastic. So I think that's very interesting, you know, and it kind of validates, you know, where, you know, where we come from, where our life is. You know, it's been a practical, how do we take the spirituality in and still have a practical life in this kind of a society that we have, and so on. And to do that, we have a responsibility, I think. You know, I feel like I have a responsibility to be able to intellectualize that and talk about that and present that and give people access to that. Otherwise, it just becomes invisible to them. So what's going to happen in a future life, you know, what's going to happen in 10 years from now, or I don't know, you know, but I certainly want it to be, you know, something noble. And, you know, is to be a bodhisattva. I've always thought that, you know, I would have another life in some way, you know, and it wouldn't be like a Buddha who is beyond all this. I feel, you know, that I want to be able to share with other beings. I think that's important, you know, so, and mostly because I still have some cleaning up to do. You know, there's still some problems that I know I need to continue working on, and so on. And there are some things that come very easily to me, but then there are other things that I cannot make happen. There are certain things that I can't make happen. And but slowly, it's starting to work that way. And it's interesting, and I don't have a good articulation for it right now, but it's something I've been thinking about, why those things are starting to happen. And I know it's based in virtue. I know that, because I know when I make a mistake, when I do something that is really creates suffering, or I'm ignorant or hateful or something like that, I pay the price immediately. And it may be 6 months or a year and a half, 2 years. I know I'm paying the price for it, because certain things aren't working for me the way I want them to, and I'm paying the price for those transgressions. So it's being aware of all that, you know, seeing all that.
Thank you, Lance. I wanted to add something if there's time.
Sure, go
I would
ahead.
say, you asked me if I would be a monastic in this life. I think if I had done that, I think there would have been a time in my life where I wonder if I would have regretted not having a child, because you're talking about Drupan's, that love, you know, that lay practitioners can experience. I mean, it's completely different, of course, but it made me think of, you know, I mean, that I learned so much, and I'm able to apply so much of our practices just by taking care, like that motherly love for my son. So I don't know. I think I think I would have missed that. I may have had regrets. So I don't know. I think it's worked out like it should work out. And yeah, it's really wonderful to be able to to apply our practices as a mom and try to make that fit and work. And yeah. So I'm really grateful for that in this life.
Yeah, some people, some monastics do say that the monastic way of life is going away because it's that's a grasping too, and that the real, homogenization of the lifestyles, to have a spiritual lifestyle in our kind of a society is what's important. It doesn't all have to be monasticism and so on. Either you're a monastic and a spiritual person, or you're an ordinary heathen or whatever.
Yeah.
So they
Yeah.
recognize that there's something that's in flux, or
Yeah.
some of them do, I should say.
Yeah. It's also interesting. I think like Thomas said, if we can just be decent humans, we're really doing doing the world a favor. We're really doing a good job. So
Some sort of service for the good of humanity. It's bigger than right livelihood. It's enormously rewarding when you are able to actually serve. Your livelihood does something important. Not just right, but doing a lot of right through your livelihood.
yeah. I would love to see our culture. Maybe this is just I don't know, a daydream, but I'm really interested in the stories of the moms, especially like some of the Tibetan, I can't think of their names right now, but I've read stories about some of Tibetan women who are practitioners who have children, and they raise their kids lovingly in a spiritual household, and they're also able to go off on retreat for a month. That may not happen very often, but I think if parents could kind of be supported in, I don't know how this would work with work lifestyle, but if society could get to a place where we could really support parents, moms and dads, and they could go off on retreats and come back and bring all that spiritual wealth to the household and community, I think that would be so lovely and such an ideal. It'd be so good for the community.
Well, I think that's great. I think that's something to work toward. And why can't that happen in your lifetime?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I think if I had, like, if that could be my goal now, I think that would be so lovely. That'd be really wonderful.
You mean like to maybe go off to GBI for a month, Amanda?
Oh yeah. And my son is 5, so that's definitely not, that would not be, that he needs me more at home now, but yeah, as he gets older, yeah, something like that would be great. But I'm kind of speaking more as like, just as a society, if that was just kind of the norm, that I think that would be lovely.
I think, in your situation, because you live in an area that doesn't have that kind of community, but on the other hand, now we have Zoom and we can create this virtual community, and we just have to, get over the idea that we're talking to each other this way. But to me, it's like you're right here.
I feel the same way. Yeah.
Yeah. So my point is to make those relationships with brothers and sisters that are in the community as much as we can, and to partake of the opportunities, and maybe we have to knock on a few doors ourselves and say, I would like to be part of their community. How can I get into that community and so on? Because a lot of the people, I'm thinking in terms of the Tibetans or the Vietnamese people or something, because they have a lot of that in their lives already. And I admire that, and there's a community spirit. And if they could say, oh, well, I want to go on retreat for a month, and one of the other sisters, well, I'll take care of your kids for the month while you're gone. And maybe, you'll take care of my kids next year when I want to go, or something like that, and build that kind of a community like that. Another thing that I've seen that's really interesting is like when His Holiness Chetseng Rinpoche comes, And especially when he goes to like New York, where there's a huge number of Tibetan people up there, and he's giving a great teaching a week or something like that. And the place is filled with women with children as well as the men, and they're sitting around the periphery of the big room, and the kids are running around and so on. But the point is that it's open to the whole family. It's not just sitting there, rigid in front of the Lama who's dictating all this stuff. It's a family thing. And they say, well, that's the way it is in the old country.
Oh, that's really beautiful. Yeah, that's lovely. And I think that's really inviting for the kids, because if the kids have to be completely still and rigid, it's not.
Of
I mean, I know
course.
for my son, he's very active, and that's he wouldn't be interested. So
That's right. Yeah. So, and the same thing with the Sunday, Garchin children's practice that we do at Dharma Surya Center. It was the kids who wanted to go on Zoom when things shut down at Dharma Surya. They said, "Can't we do our practice on Zoom?" And these were kids that have been in the program for 3 or 4 years. So it's
that's wonderful.
so that's part of the access that we have to create. We have to create the facility. We have to create the access and so on for all this. There's I got to read something to you. There's a practice that I'm doing now, and at the end, just a moment. Here it is. May I also be kindly forgiven. May I also be kindly forgiven for being an ordinary person, for not having attained yogic power, for missing necessary facilities, forgetting and being unmindful, and for missing any part of the ritual. So there's this awareness, and this is in a chakra samvara practice. This is in a high yoga tantra practice. This is, something that we recite at the end of the practice, and realizing, that we're all in this state of flux and so on. So the point is that we need to activate those things that we are missing on. We just can't accept the fact that we're going to miss them. We say, okay, well, how can I have the facility? How can I not be an ordinary person? How can I learn these rituals and be able to do these rituals and so on? So our practices are very active practices. They're not passive practices.
I think I remember, Lance, I guess a couple years ago when Adrian and Amanda started to Skype with you, and you're working through the bugs with that. And you had the hybrid meetings, and you taught, and they couldn't see the people in the audience. It was not like it is on Zoom. And then COVID came along, and we're in crisis. We're just completely can't travel. I mean, and it was scary. And then all of a sudden now, it's not just that we have vaccines, but I think, really back sometime in the summer, probably, we started to get the rhythms of Zooming regularly, and, the experience of Zooming every day with people across the country, doing practices, having connections every day. We had no conception of that 13, 14 months ago. And we've got a completely different lifestyle now as a result. And we as a society, and I think as Sangha, we have just not had anything like it to compare to. Even if we lived nearby, it's nothing like being able to get together so easily with everyone here tonight. every week.
Yeah, I think it's great. It's worked out really good. And really, we have to be thankful for Kempo Samduk, because he has really, he's been special in that, because I know the other lamas are doing things, where 3 or 4 times a week maybe, but not every day. Drupan's doing it every day. And that's really great. It's been great for him. It's been great for the Sangha at large, and so many people have benefited from that. It's a wonderful thing. It really is.
You meant Kempo. You didn't mean Drupon, did you?
Did I say Kempo? I said Kempo Samduk.
You meant Kempo.
Kempo. Because Drupan does it a couple days a week. That's
Yeah.
all, 3 days, 4 days at the most. But Kempo does it every day.
And even when he doesn't do it, this practice group has an enormous amount of momentum now. And he's been getting us to say the practices, take turns saying the practices,
Right.
rather than just, him doing them. It's
Right.
really created something quite extraordinary.
No, I agree. That's really, really good. No, I really think that's wonderful.
Yeah, I was able to, when starting in March of last year, April, I was able to jump into that morning practices for about 2 months, and I was able to jump in maybe 4 times a week for weeks at a time, and it made a big difference in in the days of my lives. And it was amazing that with or without Kempo, it just ran. It went, and people pitched in, no matter how sweet they sounded, or how sour they sounded, or how new they were. The book was there, and you went from top to bottom, and everybody's heart was in it. So it was really inspiring to watch that happen. And I was glad to have that opportunity at the time. Once George Mason started asking us to be a little more accountable for our time and start showing up on campus, it's on my calendar. 10 o'clock every morning, daily practice is on my calendar, but it's just, it's the practical side. There's always something else on the calendar that takes precedence. So I missed that. And I know Amanda and Curtis and Thomas are regulars, if not every morning, but regulars in that daily, in Kenpo's daily practice, and I'm envious.
Michael, you're there with us in spirit. I think of you during practice. I think, oh, Michael would be here if he could. So you're there in spirit.
Yeah.
By the way, is he teaching tomorrow, this weekend? Oh, that's right. I know what he's teaching.
I think he is. Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I think he is. There was a new book, right, that Amanda's been putting together, and thank goodness for Amanda for doing that, and so on. It's been really great. The baton has been passed.
Oh, my internet froze. I just heard Amanda. I don't know. I haven't done much, is all I have to say. I'm not sure what
I was praising you and thanking you for picking up the baton to work with Kempo on these books and so on. That for these sessions that he's having, these teaching sessions, because it's really good.
Oh, well, thank you. It's really quite a blessing for me. Just to be able to type those teachings helps so much, and I just hope it can help everybody. So
That's wonderful. Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and I just wanted to say that Michael, the last 2 years that I was working before I knew I was going to retire at 62, but those last couple of years I really had to bear down, because this was my last 2 years to work, and I had to make it so that I could retire, and so I slacked off from my attendance at TMC and other things that I was, present in before that. But then soon as I retired, it was like flipping a switch. And I never looked back at my work, what I was doing all that time, and everything just became Dharma for me. So my point in saying that to you is you can look forward to that.
Next life, Lance. I don't
Well,
get
you're
to
not going
stop.
to work forever,
I don't get to stop until I'm too sick.
Well, they're going to throw you out before too long.
No, not in higher education. I could drool and be wearing
Is
diapers
that right?
and still work, but I'd
Wow.
have to work until I was 80 to get a retirement that would keep me out of living in a refrigerator box.
Oh, really?
So that's probably what I have to do.
All right.
Next life, I'll be ready.
Well, I hope the Dakini of good fortune, Zambala shines on you and brings you the fortune that you think you need to be able to dedicate your life to Dharma. At least whatever you're doing now, it becomes a Dharma practice. Yes.
Earlier when Amanda was talking about, that she had become a monastic without having children, that she would have, really missed that. But we forget the Buddha had a wife. The Buddha had a son. He was a family man.
Who came and was with him.
That's what I'm saying.
His son was with him, and I don't know about Yasadar, but I hear that she was. I haven't read anything about that.
I mean, because like I said, I had a lot of previous Mahayana teachings, and in that order, in the Tego order, they encourage the monastics to marry, to have children, so you can have a broader perspective of everyday people, of what they're going through, the hardships they're going through, instead of being isolated and, and just, worrying about yourself. And, because when you have a wife and children, it gives you a much broader perspective of the suffering that everybody else is going through to have as family. So you can relate to them much easier. And you can relate to them, period,
That was a tradition in the 17th and 18th century Japanese Buddhism also, where some of the leadership, the founders of some of the faiths that emerged at the time, they learned that being a householder is added value to being a teacher, to being able to travel. And they found that it kept their system alive under the tyranny of the empire and wars, because the temples got passed from father to son. And it's been, hundreds of years. And so we've got the minister at Ekoji Buddhist Temple is an 11th generation minister. And he came out of catering. It didn't look like he was going to actually inherit a temple, and he didn't. He had to come and earn one in the United States. But I think, except for the elite priesthood in Japan, at least in Pure Land, all of the ministers are family people, and their children are born in the temple. They're part of the community. The wives are part of the wives create the sort of auxiliary clubs, and everybody cooks together. It's a nice environment that's created when families are welcome, and when the religious leadership are family people.
Yeah, those are good points, and that's another part of our study should be studying the biographies of many of these masters and their cultures and so on, and be able to see how we can morph that into who we are now, where this is going, for the next generations to come, and so on like that. Yeah, just getting the doctrine is important, but it's just getting the doctrine. Being able to see how other people have enjoyed this is really very useful, very practical to understand that. So
and
reading some of these books is really good.
to have what's going on be sustainable. The lay leadership the lay leadership and the lay practitioners need to expand and build a structure that will support.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's taking off in the Japanese in the Pure Land areas. They've set up an infrastructure that promotes lay people. I mean, they put lay people on the ministerial track as soon as they seem like they want to be of service in the temple, and it gives them a position of responsibility in the Dharma. And they get to perform marriages and give Dharma talks, and as young lay people starting at age 16 or 17, and that really grooms young adults for active participation as teachers and role models and leaders in the tradition, which is really necessary when all of the tradition holders are dying off. The older generations are dying off, and the newer generations, especially in the Pure Land world, the young people don't want to live in a temple. They want to go to Wall Street. They want to be engineers. They want to be computer engineers. So raising up the lay leadership and the lay people to take responsibilities is really important. And I think you're doing that. And I'm not sure whether that's been a model that was handed down to you, or whether it's common across other Kagyu Dharma centers. But I think it's definitely the sort of influence that you're having at DDSC is to sort of create a new breed of folks that are willing to step up and take some responsibility and take people under their wing and do service.
Well, it really comes from reading these biographies, because I've got, you've seen you haven't seen my library, but I got a whole bunch of books and stuff like that I've read about these kinds of things, and I say, hey, that's a good idea. I'll do that. And that's what we need to do. And that's what I'm trying to say to people is if we want these things to happen, we have to make these things happen. They're not going to happen by themselves. And to that point, now we've got a relative calm right now. We can turn on the TV and we can watch a news program. And I know right now it's filled with all this court stuff going on and everything. But the absence of the bombastic stuff that was happening from the previous administration is kind of gone for now, and it's given me a chance to be able to say, there was a time when I was really enjoying myself, enjoying my music, enjoying people around me, during the time of the 60s and the 70s was really great for me anyway, and people my age and so on. And I started listening to some of that music and everything, and it's refreshing. It's bringing back all that stuff. And I'm saying, wow, I want, and then Amanda said, because I sent that thing with George Harrison, I sent that, and Amanda says the greatest thing, she says, I grew up with that. And, and I didn't make, I forgot that.
Kate said that. Yeah, that was Kate.
Oh, it was Kate that said that.
Yeah.
Oh,
I didn't hear that album until I was in college. So.
Okay, well, it was Kate that said that. All right. So, but nevertheless, the point is that people have grown up with that. We lived with that, but it's kind of been marginalized with all the junk that's been happening these past number of years. And we need to remember that and bring that back up. We need to bring that forward. We can't let it go. And, there's going to be a big change that's going to happen in 30 years. There's going to be a paradigm shift. Every 100 years, there is this burst of enlightenment, and we have to be prepared for that. I'm going to be gone, but Amanda and her kids and Thomas and so on, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be there for that, and they need to be prepared for that. To recognize it when it happens, to prepare for it, recognize when it happens, and then to sustain it after that big breakthrough goes through. And this is part of the Tantra. This is part of the continuum, is being able to see these cycles, the wheels of Dharma going around. Being able to recognize these things. And again, this is by reading these biographies and so on, you begin to you see these things happening and so on. There's a book that I got that they only printed 108 copies. And I got one of the copies. And it is the biography of all the 37 Drikungpas, the throne holders of the Drikung Kagyu. And it has a portrait of them, and then it has a short biography of each one. And, it was a clan. It was the Kurya clan. And the changes that they went through, the vicissitudes that they went through is really amazing. I made a timeline of it and so on. So I'm going to probably risk going to jail for a copyright infringement, but I'm going to scan it and make it available for everybody, because it's too good to just let 100 copies be sitting on somebody's shelves. This needs to be shared.
Lance, when I was down at Ngondro, I guess a year and a half, 2 years ago, I saw that book. And I said, just like you, I thought this is precious. So I took pictures of pretty much the whole thing. I think I didn't skip anything. So I've got the whole thing. Haven't had a chance to read it through, but it is a magnificent book, with so many biographies.
Yeah. So there's many resources, and we need to be able to develop those resources. So I'd like to find somebody to help me do some of these things. So I know you guys are busy, but if you know somebody's looking for something to do to help, that might be some way that we can do that. Well, I'm glad we're talking like this. I'm enjoying this. I hope you guys are.
Very much so. I mean, this is very healthy for us, because, like I said, there are certain Buddhist groups or certain people that practice Buddhism that feel that the vibe that you get is like they don't want to share anything with you because they don't feel that you're worthy of getting some of these teachings, because they've been practicing it for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and and it's just, I don't know, some people just aren't friendly or very open, and to give teachings and to offer insight on a lot of stuff. And that was really refreshing for me to hear you talk about Buddhism. That this is not a secret club. This is not a society where it's all hush hush, and you have to have the secret handshake and all this and that to get involved. You basically embraced all of us and took us under your wing and said, hey, would you like to really learn? And then you started teaching us, and that was very, very inspiring, because when we made mistakes, you correct us, and no, you shouldn't, you should do it this way, because this is the right way to do it. This is the way that it should be done, instead of just letting us just keep making the same mistakes over and over and over and over, as far as being like a Buddhist, we should smile more. We should be more, accepting of others,
And joy and bodhicitta.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We should smile. I mean, whenever we see someone new coming in, we should, we should embrace that, and be happy, to that they're even willing to, try it out, That's
Well,
what.
we got to get back to when we get back to Dharmasuri again, get back to the temple and creating these programs and volunteering to be the manager of the programs, and that's what we need.
Mhm.
More participation with more people to do those things.
Sure, and that's the thing, because a lot of the Buddhism that I learned, younger, it was very rigid, very, very, very structured, very disciplined, and I'm like, there's got to be a kinder, much more accepting way of doing this, So, and
And we can't, and the way I look at it, we can't depend upon the lamas to do it all,
no, impossible,
because they're
impossible.
coming from a different culture,
Sure,
you know, and they have to accept us, but we also have to give them the confidence to accept us.
certainly, certainly.
There's dialogue that has to happen, this
Mhm.
relationship that has to happen, and so on. And it takes effort on both sides. But I think from our side, we have the initiative, we have to take the initiative to make some of these things happen.
Certainly.
That's the job of the laity, and in reading that book that I was talking about, the history of the Drikung Kagyu, is the conflicts would sometimes come between the monastics, and
Mm,
sometimes the conflicts would come between the laity, and sometimes the conflicts would become between the monastics and the laity itself,
mhm.
but it's all there.
Sure.
And we need to be able to recognize that and be able to have the way to be able to move through all that, to understand that, to have the tolerance for it all. So again, knowing the history of it makes it easier to do.
Sure. Because I remember, I don't know, about 6, 7 months ago, you were teaching a 101 class, and I came into the class a little late because I was doing just getting some other maybe it was a Saturday night, and I think that's when Kempo was doing some of his commentaries on the way of the Bodhisattva. So I'd finished up and I'd clicked onto the Zoom that you were teaching, and you looked over at me and go, Tom, you're always smiling. You're always smiling. I was like, yeah, why shouldn't I be? This is wonderful, to be amongst, brothers and sisters that, that enjoy what we're doing, and they want to spread, the Dharma. I mean, if I died right now, I mean, I'll die a happy person. And that's the thing. I mean, like I said, I mean, there's certain groups that just very rigid and very, very, very disciplined and very, I guess, regimented. But I want to be that group that, anybody that wants to be a part of it, accept them with a smile and like, and the things that like you said, the Kempos and the monastics are teaching, sometimes they're way above our heads. But see, at least we have a layperson like yourself that are willing to teach us to get to that point where we can understand the teachings that we're getting from the Kempos, because a lot of times they don't do the basic teachings. That's very hard to come by. And that's basically, hey, read this and you'll understand. Like, well, yeah, you can read it and read it, but like I said, I'm not the brightest, I'm not the brightest person. So it's easier for me to see it and hear it than just to read it, because some people are just very bright like that. They can read it one time, twice, boom, they got it, but you took the time to and the effort to to show us, literally show us, hey, this is the foundational stuff that you guys need to learn, and then did it with 101, 102, Friday nights, and then Thursday nights with the practice. I mean, that's 4 days a week, and that's a lot that that you've taken on and to show us, so when we go to these teachings that the Kempo and Drupal are teaching are giving, that now we can comprehend them and we can understand them, And just simple thing like the hand mudras. No one showed us. I mean, you're the one that took the time to literally show us what everything meant and what, how to do it correctly, And, because a lot of times when you go to these teachings and stuff, everybody's doing it. You're looking at them like, what are they doing? I wonder what they're doing. No one's explaining anything, they expect you to know this, So, just a lot of appreciation, really.
Well, thank you very much. But
Mhm.
like I said, it's coming from others. It's just flowing through us. It's all part of the tantric continuum that we're passing on. We're passing through together and so on. So we talk about za hong bam ho, right? We're hooking, we're tying ourselves up, we're locking ourselves up, and then we're joyful about it. We're ringing the bell. We're joyful about it. So all these things have all these elements in there. That's why these practices are so great. And to see how we can make it work in a society, and that's what the sixth or the fifth of the Eightfold Path, the right livelihood, to bring all this together.
Sure.
It's not just doing a job, but it's also doing your spirituality, having a spiritual community and so on. Making this stuff work.
Yeah.
So it's a family.
Certainly is. It certainly is,
Yeah.
It's a wonderful family because, like I said, I look forward to these teachings and to seeing our Sangha, and, if I don't get a dose of it, I feel like there's a part of me that's not whole, it's like, oh man, I missed out, feel.
Well, these conversations I think are really great. I enjoy these as much as the practices. We don't have them as often, but when we have them, I mean, you are, we're 5 people here who are really interested in this. And I know that if Adrian were here, he'd be very much involved in the conversation, and Gary would, and other people would be very much involved in the same conversation with us and so on. And maybe they'll watch it on YouTube and enjoy it as much as we're doing it right now.
Yes, really. It's
Okay, well, I don't want to, we've kind of spent our whole time here. So talking about this.
I think it's good. When you think about it, when we used to gather at the temple, we'd have hanging out time, but it wasn't as intentional as tonight has been, and as a group. And I think this is a nice other way to Zoom together, to be Sangha together.
Yeah.
yeah.
I look at this. This is the core of what the next 5 years is going to be at Dharma Surya.
The core being Zooms.
Well, the people. The 5 of us plus Adrian and plus Kate and Gary and Bhavani and William and the people who have been joining us. And I'm hopeful. I can see around the corner a little bit and see that this is really developing into something really, really good, and I'm really happy with that. I'm very thankful for that. And I've been, I kind of feel like for all of us, we've been working toward this, and now we're coming together. Maybe Achichoki Droma is clearing away the obstacles, and Zambala is bringing us together, because together we're creating a prosperity and spirituality and so on. We can see the fruits of our being on the path, together. We all could be doing this individually, but how do they say the sum is greater than, or the result is greater than the sum of the parts? How's that expression go? Michael, you know what I'm talking about? The whole is greater than the sum of the parts, something like that.
It is.
But that's what
correct.
it is. Huh?
Yeah, that's correct.
But I think we got to seize on these things.
Lance, earlier I had mentioned about how we've arrived at this new place via Zoom. Aren't you just, with what you just said, talking about how that goes forward with the development of community among the people who are central to some of these Zooms?
Yes.
That's a big idea. I hadn't thought about that. You know, when you said the next 5 years, that really is something to think about. You're opening my mind up to something that's huge that I hadn't thought about. What's next? You know, for the next few years. You know, it's really pretty rich, the idea that we're going to be able to connect like this. And where's it going to be several years down the road when we've had, you know, the richness of these regular meetings together for a couple years? We don't have any way of figuring that out because it's a whole new world, all this Zooming.
And you know what's one of the good things about this? It hasn't been said, but there's no money issue with us. And if you partake of some of these other organizations, and I'm not disparaging them, but there is a motivation of money. Some people are living off of these yearly events that they have, you know, and they're like self-help programs or something like that. And I don't know that they have the richness of the and the way that we talk about it. Maybe I'm being unfair about classifying it that way.
I think you're talking about the how truly precious the Sangha we have is, which is a function of who we all are. We're a good group of people.
Without a profit motivation.
Yeah, that's a big part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And giving space to each other to express themselves. I think that's an important part of this.
Well, let's not forget that center where Curtis is at. That takes real money to keep that place going.
Well, that's true.
That's got bills, it's got utilities, it's got a mortgage.
Well, there's that practical side, and you're absolutely right about that.
You
But I do want to make this other point, and look at who we are. I mean, right now there's 16 people who have been coming in and out on a relative frequent basis with our 101 group. 16 people now, and they're all Western people. And that's not bad or not good, but I'm just saying here is a core of people who all are demonstrating a real interest in this, and everybody has something to offer in terms of their devotion, but also something to offer in terms of their skillful means, some of their life experiences that they can bring to bear in the future of this growing and so on. And that has to be recognized too. That's part of the right livelihood that I was talking about in the Eightfold Path. So we need to keep building that, and a year and a half ago, it was 2 or 3 of us. So now it's grown, 4 times?
5-folds, yeah.
So that's good, in another year, maybe it can grow another 2 or 3 times, but it's up to us to facilitate that, to be there when people are knocking on the door, to open the door and have the smile on the face and bring them in and so on.
Sure.
When Lance was here today, it was wonderful, and I was busy on my project. And then I finally went downstairs and had some time with Lance. And it turns out he had to leave earlier than I thought. But I realized how nice it was getting together in person. We're going to enjoy that when it happens. It's not like, life is good on Zoom. That's it. but I don't want to give up the Zoom. You know, the Zoom is too easy. And
Well,
it's,
we're not, I don't think I'm going to give it up.
no, I know we won't. But it's almost attention. It doesn't have to be, but it's almost attention, you know, because you can't do both. You know, I can't see you Friday night. I can see you Friday night on Zoom, or I could see you if you were here in person, Lance. I'd prefer in person. It is richer and better, but, well, I was trying to say something more than that. Let's see, what was I going to say? I forgot. It'll come back to me.
I'll come back. All right. Well, thank you all very much.
No, thank you, Lance, really, for laying such a wonderful foundation. I mean, you made somebody gave you lemons and literally made wonderful lemonade with it. And yeah, because I mean, this COVID thing was, you know, it's horrible. And then the Campo Sandup and
Well, we've all done it together,
Running.
you know.
yeah,
So it's been a group effort, and we always have to look at it that way.
oh, definitely. But like I said, I mean, all the things that you send out to us, all the pamphlets, all the reading material, all the stuff. I know that takes up a lot of your time, and I know you enjoy it, but you know, that mail doesn't pay for itself. It doesn't just somehow arrive here, you know, just because we wish it to, you know. And I know you do a lot. You really do a lot to keep us all connected and try to give us the best teaching that you possibly can, you know. And that's why you're always, you know, whenever I look in my mailbox, I'm like, oh, it's something from Lance. I wonder what this is, you know. And I open it up, you know, it's like, oh, great, you know.
Did you get that book today or yesterday?
Last night, I got it last night.
Last night, good.
Yeah, I went out to
Michael, did you get yours?
Yes.
Mhm.
Good.
Yeah, the condensed jewel ornament of liberation.
Yeah, it's only about that big.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I have a little quick story to tell. Ed Jones, you know, he's a retired professor, and
Is that right? What did he teach?
he was an adult education specialist.
Ah,
He came out of the Navy, and he was in the Navy at a time where they were upgrading their enlisted men requirements. So he ran a program for the Navy that basically got enlisted personnel up to their GDD level, and got them, you know, reading and writing. And so before he turned around, he worked for a University of Virginia Tech or University of Virginia. He turned around and he had his PhD. And so he came to Mason, and he ran a program that they had an adult education minor, and they ran a contract education office out of the College of Education, where organizations like commerce, you know, business organizations, government organizations, if they wanted to have a class, if they wanted to bring a college credit onto their military base, or into their school system, or into their business, Ed was the kind of person that would put it together for them, develop a course, decide on the credit, negotiate the fees, recruit the correct faculty who would write the curriculum and deliver the course. And he did that for 20 years. But he called me today, and he had left a message earlier, and then he said he had to talk to me about a couple things. And one of the first things he wanted to talk about is he wanted to understand what the system we had going here in like 101. He was a little confused, because he knew that he had signed up for an 8-week class. I mean, that's that in his head. The poster says an 8-week cycle. And he knew that it was looping, you know, that it should be looping over and over again, because, you know, we have new people coming, and that there might be times where it would actually stop and then start again at the same place. and he's just finally realized that this is probably the either the second or the third time that he's doing the life of the Buddha, and he's wondering whether it's okay to just stick around for this, or whether he should be like graduating onto something else, or whether he should just go, because he's not ready to do practices. He's extremely curious, and he's really interested, and the material makes a lot of sense to him. And so he doesn't really want to just go somewhere else and start reading some books, but he doesn't know if it's the right thing to just sit there and sort of keep looping. I told him that there's some of us that are on our third loop, and you've explained that when you're encountering material, especially spiritual material, you always approach it at a different level, and so it's always new when you approach something like that. That's spiritual knowledge, philosophical knowledge, experiential knowledge, and so he came to this because he wanted to know what the hell I was talking about. but his experience of it is that he looks forward to it, much like other people that I've heard that are in their second round of 101. And Zara, who says this is like her date night, we're her weekly dates. and it's a priority for her. And they become emotionally attached to the little Sangha.
In a good way.
Yeah. And so, it was a brief conversation with him, but I had to reassure him that it's okay. Yes, you could send some more money, but it's not going to be essential, and it's not weird because you've already paid for 8 weeks and now you've got 18. I said, you manage that however you want, but stay, because you're growing in this, and maybe someday you'll want to lead a prayer, try that out, or maybe someday you'll want to see what a practice looks like. Or maybe you want to expand the horizon a little bit and dip into the 102 realm. So this is the way you grow a Sangha, is one person at a time. And you create fertile ground for them to drop into, so that they feel welcome. And you provide them with enough flexibility so that they can make sense on their own of what's going on. And there's enough richness of experience, of varied experience, people that are questioning, people that don't know shit, people that know a little bit. And so that's really fertile ground for somebody to drop into. Because he asked me, I'll make this short. He asked me, he said, I know I ask a lot of stupid questions. He says, do you think Lance is getting pissed off at me asking these really, really basic questions? I say, no, you're a professor. You're asking very pointed, very reasonable questions that on any given level, somebody in that audience wants to hear the answer to. And you're not storytelling. You're not taking up 5-10 minutes of time. You're not interrupting unnecessarily. It's just you're part of the learning process. And he's like, okay, good.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for that.
So he's
and
good.
talking to him like that, that's really great. I reached out to him a couple different times to have a conversation on the phone during the week, and we never got together. I would be happy to, and frankly, I've had one-on-one conversations with everybody, one time or another, and not the least of which was Gary. Gary went through, when he first started with us, it wasn't that he was skeptical, but he just wasn't getting it, and he didn't know if he wanted to get it, and we had a couple, and he dropped out for a while. I don't know if you remember, but maybe for a month or so, he just didn't come in. He didn't show up and everything. And I guess maybe I called him, I don't remember, or he just started coming back because we had a couple phone calls. And then when he came back, he really got committed.
Mhm.
I don't know whether you noticed that or not.
Mhm.
He's very animated. He participates a lot. He's sharing a lot of material.
Yeah.
He's very engaged.
So
Yeah,
I'm
he's
just making
studying.
the point that people go through these things, and then all of a sudden, and we used to say in the sales business, if you want to close somebody, just take it away from them. Don't run after them. Just let them go. And if they really want it, they'll come back. It's like your mother might have said when you had a girlfriend. If she really loves you, just let her go. And if she loves you, she'll come back, some kind of an expression like that. But I've seen that happen several times. So thank you for talking to Ed. And I don't know whether you noticed, but usually, when we're talking and everything, there's somebody that we're talking to. It's we're talking to the group, but sometimes there's one person that we're really talking to because of something that they've said or you think that they need to hear and so on. And that usually works out pretty good, I think.
This Ed Jones guy is a big shot educator at JMU. George Mason.
No, he's retired.
But
He's
still-
retired.
He's a serious educator, is what you said,
He's-
isn't it?
He's been a serious educator, and he's in service. He's a big shot in food pantries in Fauquier County. So he's on boards of directors and stuff. He's in community service and social justice, and he's published a couple of books around people that volunteer in language organizations and people that volunteer in food kitchens and the people that take advantage of those things. So he's big in community service. He recruited me to the board of directors for the Northern Virginia Literacy Council back when I was in college. So that's how he keeps himself busy in his retirement.
People like that who are accomplished, educated, done a lot of service. They may be new to Dharma, but they are not new to a lot of things that we're about. And it's one of the things that's so great about, the people that you meet through Glance and through Drika and Dharma. They're just wonderful people.
Well, he might be very helpful to us and helping us, create a better structure. If he's picking up that, what's the structure here? We're moving along, that we're structured enough, for ourselves, but it would be good to have a better structure. So he might have some really good suggestions about how to do things a step up, to meet our goal of what 5 years looks like down the road and so on.
It would be worth it. It would be worth a chat, because I'm sure he would have some ideas about how to make explicit the path of progress in lay education.
Yeah. The lady who I'm working with, Debbie McLaughlin, with the Bardo Todol thing that we're going to start.
Mhm.
She spent, her career doing organizing for not-for-profit organizations, charitable organizations, and she's like semi-retired now. So she has a very focused way. So she's been helping me with the Bardo Todol project, and so I really appreciate having people like that, so we need to seize on that and make it more successful.
That's another thing to remember. You find the right time, and then you ask for somebody to be of some slight service. That's a hook.
Yeah.
You give them something to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll make an effort to talk to Ed again.
Let's see, 101 starts this coming Monday. What what did you tell me that Lance today? You started with Buddha last week, but what are you going to do this coming Monday?
Chapter 1 of the Jewel Ornamental Liberation.
Okay, and that's where the little book that you mailed
That
me.
little
comes in.
book is an outline for each chapter. So if you have the book, you know, that's great. But if you don't have the book, you can follow that. That's what I follow when I'm talking, you know, the outline. So you can make your notes in there and stuff like that. And for years, I've been, you know, I pass this out to people. I usually pass it out just one chapter at a time, but I put it into a book, and so I decided it'd be good to everybody have the book. Let's see how that works if everybody has the book.
Does Ed have a copy?
Yeah, I sent him a copy. Yeah,
Good.
It's
So we,
I like
so
the
we have
idea-
a common text.
right. I sent out 16 copies the other day.
Okay. No,
I like the idea, Lance, because I think for the people that are in and out of 101, for whatever reason, it helps them have a little bit of continuity. And to have to keep the text together by, you know, printing out, you know, the weekly mailing and stuff, that's that takes some skill, and not everybody's done it. So this book will be very helpful to build cohesion and you know, create comprehension just by the organization of the material in a book.
I hope so. Yeah.
A
So-
quick question, Lance. When you do all these projects, as far as, you know, printing out all this, getting the paper, the ink, the mailing, does Dharma Series help you with this, or are you a lot of this doing out of your kindness of your heart?
Well, most of it is my donation. Some of it, you know, when I do some printing stuff, I do down at the center, and so the paper and material, the printer, you know, is down there. But most of what I do is from my home, you know, and the mailing, you know, all the postage and stuff like that, I do from my home. So I just look at it as, you know, part of my donation. You know, I make a monthly donation. You know, it comes right out of my bank account. You know, I don't think about it. It gets paid with the gas and electric and everything else, you know, my monthly bills. And so, and that's what a bunch of people do, is they just have this automatic payment, you know, monthly donation that they make to the Dharma Surya Center. And actually, I got 2 other centers that I donate to.
That's a wonderful, wonderful thing. I mean,
Well, it's
really
part
nice.
of being part of doing this, you know.
Oh, I hear you. I hear. I mean, but that's a big commitment, and you don't just talk the talk, but you're walking the walk, you know. And I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and nobody gets paid. I mean, we're at Dharma Surya, everybody's a volunteer.
Oh yeah, I know. You know.
Nobody gets money. I mean, Kempo gets a stipend,
Mhm.
but it's nothing to, you know, to live on. I mean, all his expenses are paid. You know, he's got, you know, he gets his own food, but people take him out for meals all the time too. You know, so.
Because I look over and I look at the stack of the stuff that you sent us, between the envelope, the mailing stickers, the ink, the paper. That's not a small expense, you know. And you know, and you do it willingly, and you know, you don't ever mention a thing. You never ever mention anything about money, ever, you know. And that's really big heart of you, you know. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
You're very good at what you do, Lance.
Thank you. This isn't supposed to be a let's thank Lance night or anything like that.
Oh, we're telling the truth. I mean, that's what we're doing tonight. We're talking about truth, and that is the
Well,
truth.
I'm thanking you guys, because if you guys weren't there, then what I do wouldn't, you know, I'd be talking to the walls.
No, you'd be preaching to the birds, Lance.
Well, to the as that was one of the things that really gave me an incentive to do what I do. When Garchen Rinpoche first came to America, nobody knew him, and there were times when nobody came to his teachings. And he just said, I'll teach them the dust mites. And that just stayed with me. And there's been several times when I've had teachings, at different places, and nobody showed up. And I did the practice. So I gave a talk, I didn't get up and walk out. I just said, okay, I'll just keep on talking. Sometimes somebody would come in late, but some of those dust mites they got prayer wheels now.
Either that or they're riding the prayer wheel.
They're eating the Dharma paper.
Oh, thank you, brother.
All right, thank you.
By the way, I'll let y'all in on something. I think I'm going to sleep under the altar tonight.
Okay.
It's so nice. Anyway, I could go on about it. You have to see it, but I took out the boards so that they weren't doing anything at all. And they were on the floor, so you can move around better in there. Anyway, with a few cushions on the floor, you really can sleep there.
I bet you'll sleep really good too.
Oh, yeah.
I think I am too. It's going to be too much fun.
I got to ask you a pointed question. Are you guys going to join the Bardo Total book study group? Yeah. Okay, good.
Friday the first, what's the date again?
The
Friday
7th.
7th, right?
And the first, we're showing the film, the Tibetan Book of the Dead.
That's right. Thank you for reminding me.
Yeah.
And that's this Saturday or next? That's this Saturday. That's tomorrow.
No, this Saturday
May the
is
1st.
the Sadhu films.
Oh,
It's
that's
the
right.
end
That's
of
right.
it. We got another whole week in April to go yet.
So next Saturday is the film,
Right.
and then the following Friday is the first teachings or the
Correct.
first
The first
class
class. Well, the book study group.
book study group.
By the way, this is not our tradition, but it's sort of yours, Lance. You know how you can tell the difference between the Sadducees and the Pharisees in the Bible?
What
The
is it again?
Pharisees believed in either reincarnation or an afterlife. The Sadducees did not. And the way you keep that straight is that meant that they were sad, you see.
Oh, I don't know that word, that expression, Sadducee. I don't know.
There were
that
different ecclesiastical groups
word. Oh,
in New Testament times.
I see. Okay. All right, well, cool. Well, thank you all. Anybody else got anything you want to mention? Amanda?
Oh, she's back.
Hello. So I was going to ask, Lynn, what is your advice on inviting people to the Bardo Total study group? Would they have needed to have been in one-on-one classes, or is that okay? I'm curious I just want to see if my sister would like to join.
I think it's
may not have
fine. I think it's fine. It's for everybody.
Yeah. Okay.
And we're not gonna, we're gonna start off by doing the basic daily prayers and so on. So we're not gonna really get into the book for several weeks, but we'll be doing those prayers that are in the book. The 4 daily prayers and so on. So yeah, invite anybody that you want is fine with me.
Okay.
And it
Wonderful.
may give them an incentive to then want to join 101.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Thank you. Yeah,
You know,
good to know. Thanks.
One of the things that I learned about Buddhism is it's open for everybody. The Buddha taught at 3 levels all the time. And those that had to hear the first level, that's all they would hear. The people at the second level, that's all they would hear. And the people at the third level would hear that, But he was talking at 3 levels simultaneously.
Yeah. That's perfect. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, good. All right. So you'll be able to join us for the Bardo Total?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. That's my plan.
All right,
Yeah.
great. All right, I'll look forward
Lance,
to it.
Thank
when you get a chance, that big show, do you have that big leaf from the Bardo Total handy?
The big what?
the big Pesha page.
Oh, it's downstairs.
Oh, well, you have to show it to us. I would like to, I'd like for you to lay it out on a table and put something like a pencil next to it, you know, to give it scale, because I've never,
that
it's
big.
huge. It's gorgeous. There's something magnificent about it.
Yeah. And it was just one page out of the Kangur. So you can imagine what the books must have been like.
And I had taken pictures of the Pesha that you gave me recently, a few pictures just to illustrate, you know, the size and what the
Right.
pictures on the page. I had 4 pictures. And if I had a picture of that large page you had today, I think it would be a nice way of highlighting how important this scripture is.
Okay,
So I'm
very
interested
good.
in the picture.
All right. And I got to tell you, the tenor who you met today,
Yes.
his family is the Taring family, and they were royalty in in Sikkim. And Sikkim was a principality that's part of India today, but at one time it was independent. It was a monarchy. And his uncle, who he wrote this book about that we're making this thing about, he was the crown prince. So so that's the family that he was born into, and he's a cousin to His Holiness Chetsang Rinpoche, the Taring family. The Taring was one of the ministers, was one of the main ministers to the Dalai Lama, the 13th and the 14th Dalai Lama, way back. I mean, you know, these aristocrats and so on. So.
Yeah, he was something today. It was really something. Everyone else, this man brought over a couple of crates of pictures, and I guess Lance was making scans of some of them, but it was very clear that these pictures were extraordinary.
So these books that we're making are going to the Dalai Lama and to His Holiness Chetsang Rinpoche, Ngondro Rinpoche, and other, you know, great monastics to review the book and make suggestions, so that, you know, when it gets finally published, it'll have their suggestions incorporated in there. All right, I'm going to go. Thank you all very much. I look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow, and thanks for the conversation. Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you all. Thank you.
All
Have a
right.
good night.
Thank you, Lance.
All right. Cheery. Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everybody.
everyone.
All right. Thank you.